Hey, everybody, and welcome to this presentation called Environment by Design. I'm so excited to start to pull together for you all the different ways you can live a healthy and wellness-based life. First, we're going to learn a little bit about what it means to design your environment. Throughout this course, we've learned that how we think affects our physical health, and our body's stress reactions to trapped emotions, for example, affects our thoughts. Everything is connected by our senses. And designing the ideal environment means optimizing how our five senses come together. We can create our surroundings to specifically improve our mood, ability to cope with stress, and also help reduce anxiety. In this presentation, we're going to talk about three things. We're going to go back to basics and talk about the hierarchy of human needs. Then we're going to talk about our five senses and some essential ways to hack those. And finally, we're going to talk about what it means to live with intention. And I'll have a few steps and examples for you to follow in order to get started doing that. So the first part, we're going to review something called the hierarchy of human needs. A long time ago in school, you may have studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is a theory proposed by Abraham Maslow in 1943. It describes the pattern in which human needs are prioritized and satisfied. The theory suggests that individuals have different levels of needs and they must fulfill lower level needs first before moving on to the higher level ones. At the base of the hierarchy are the physiological needs. These are the most fundamental. They include necessities like food, water, shelter, and sleep. And without satisfying these needs, individuals will not be able to progress to the higher levels. The next level is safety needs. This encompasses physical and emotional security. People naturally seek stability, protection from harm, a sense of order in their lives. And this can include not only having a safe environment, but also financial security and personal well-being. Once physiological and safety needs are met, individuals then continue to strive for belongingness and love. And this level encompasses the need for social connections, intimacy, friendship, and a sense of belonging to a community or family. Next, the fourth level is esteem needs, which involve gaining recognition, respect, and having a sense of accomplishment for yourself and from others. And this can come from achieving personal goals, receiving praise and acknowledgement, and just developing that self-confidence that keeps you moving all day long. The top of the hierarchy is self-actualization, and it represents the highest level of human potential. Self-actualization involves fulfilling one's personal aspirations, maximizing individual talents, and reaching a state of self-fulfillment and personal growth. It's important to note that not everyone progresses through the hierarchy in the same way. Factors such as cultures, individual differences, and personal circumstances can influence the prioritization and fulfillment of these needs. And you can see how we can get a little tripped up in this process as well. So let's keep going. You create your reality. So we just saw the foundation all the way up to the top of how we can be building on our own hierarchy of needs. But at the end of the day, that's just a model, and you're the one in the driver's seat. What you eat, the music you listen to, the books you read or TV you watch, your home surroundings, the people in your life and things they say and do affect everything around your reality. It can affect the choices you make or how you react instead of respond. One of the most important things we can do as we're trying to create our environment is to be sure that we honor and celebrate the differences, not only of individuals, but of ourselves. Diversity is a fundamental aspect of the human experience, and celebrating differences is really important. First, each person brings a unique set of experiences, knowledge, and perspectives to the table. So we open ourselves to new ideas and insights that we might not have considered before. when we are sure to welcome in those perspectives. We also have a mutual learning and growth opportunity. As much as other people and cultures and beliefs can teach us, is equally how much we can teach them. If we can broaden our understanding of the world, challenge our preconceptions, and develop empathy and compassion, we'll be well on our way to creating an environment that promotes personal growth and encourages lifelong learning. Here's a quote from Abraham Maslow. When people appear to be something other than good and decent, it is only because they are reacting to stress, pain, or the deprivation of basic human needs such as security, love, and self-esteem. Let's read that again. When people appear to be something other than good and decent, it is because they are reacting. We have to believe that humankind is at its foundation, at its core, good. And it's our circumstances that cause us to not be our best selves. So in this module, we're talking about designing an environment to set us up to be our best selves. Let's talk about sensory essentials. One thing that you may not realize is what you see, hear, smell, taste, feel all day long can contribute to your tolerance level to stress and anxiety. And one way to just clear a barrier right off the bat is to set up your environment for success. Hacking your senses is something that's been done for centuries. We've seen it in ancient Eastern traditions, also in the West. Setting up our environment is becoming extremely popular. You may have even heard of trends like minimalism that helps remove clutter from our space. Hacking your senses can improve your mood and mental state by triggering the release of dopamine and serotonin. This isn't just something that's nice to look at. This is chemically related to how your brain functions. It can help you be more present and mindful, stimulate the pleasure centers of the brain, and elicit different responses in the body and mind based on which sense or which senses are engaged. And finally, creating a customized environment for you is conducive to your own relaxation and focus. Not every environment is going to help with each individual person, and there's no one size fits all. So first, let's talk about scent. This is the first physical sense that we will kind of analyze. Have you ever walked into your parents' house after not being there for a while and noticed whatever's cooking on the stove or just the smell of the laundry detergent kind of brings you right back to a feeling of comfort? Scent and mood are extremely connected. Smell affects mood as it is processed by the brain's limbic system, which is part of the brain that's associated with emotions and memory. When you smell something, it travels through the nose and is processed by the olfactory bulb, which sends signals to the brain. These signals are then processed by the limbic system, and that's the system that's responsible for regulating emotions, memory, and motivation. The limbic system is closely connected to the amygdala, which is what we talked about before. And that's the part of the brain that's responsible for processing emotions like fear and pleasure. When you smell something pleasant, it can trigger the release of these neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, and those can have a positive effect on your mood. Conversely, though, unpleasant smells can trigger negative emotions too and create feelings of disgust and anxiety. The connection between smell and emotion is thought to be deeply rooted in our evolutionary history, as it helped our ancestors to identify and avoid potential dangers in their environment. We are wired with this from the very beginning. Now, I have a couple bullets here of things that bring me personal joy. I love the smell of certain essential oils. We'll get into those here in a minute. I also have a favorite incense smell that the yoga studio I go to uses, and I actually ordered some for myself on Amazon. And whenever I burn it, my kids and my husband are just commenting on how nice the house smells. I think we all love the smell of clean laundry and fresh bed sheets. Bath time brings back so much calming sensations. And of course, who doesn't love the smell of a sleeping dog? And if you're not a dog person and you don't have a dog, this will make no sense to you. But I'm telling you, sleeping dogs have a smell, and it's the best thing ever. Going back to essential oils, there's a lot of research done in this area, and there are a ton of essential oils. It's easy to get lost, especially if you're looking on a website of one of the big essential oil companies. There's so many you don't even know what to do with yourself. My advice is to go back to basics. Lavender is a floral scent, and it really does help calm the mind and reduce anxiety. Chamomile, you may even drink this in tea. It's a sweet, fruity scent, and it promotes relaxation as well. Vanilla, bergamot, sandalwood, these are kind of across the sweet, citrusy, warm spectrum, and all of them can bring you an instant calming relief depending on what you need at that time. Frankincense, as well as myrrh, have this resinous scent, and these have been used for centuries in meditation practices. You'll find these mixed in also with incenses. With essential oils, by the way, you can just dab on your temples. You can diffuse into the air in your house. There are so many ways to use essential oils, and I will be sure to provide a link to you to learn more. Now let's talk about the visual appeal of your home. You may remember a book that came out a while back, and we'll talk about it in a little more detail, about sparking joy. Overstimulation of your environment occurs when you are exposed to an excessive amount of sensory input or mental demands that exceed our capacity to process and cope. And I'll tell you what, a cluttered house is one of the public enemies. This can occur in various situations. But one of the things that I think clutter does for us is it creates an anxiety because we know it's not the ideal state, and we know it's not our desired state. So when we're looking around our surroundings and we see clutter and a mess or dust, it takes a physical and mental toll on us. Studies have actually shown that clutter can lead to increased levels of stress hormone in the body, which I 100% experience myself. So there are some easy fixes to this. The book I mentioned on the last slide by Marie Kondo, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. This book was really popular a few years ago, and it basically says, go through your closet, go through your house. If you haven't worn something in a certain amount of time, get rid of it. But also, if it doesn't spark joy, if there is something in your home that when you look at it or pick it up and hold it in your hand, if it doesn't spark joy, get rid of it. Everything you look at, all of your surroundings should in some way spark either joy or a sense of peace and calming. So the colors you choose, the way that you decorate, patterns or books or plants, whatever it is that brings you joy, those are the things to kind of have in your view, in your frame of vision. Now let's talk about touch and taste. Touch stimulates oxytocin, and that's known as the love hormone. That's why hugs can be so healing. If you're having a bad day and nothing can bring you down, and remember, we're not smoking anymore. We're not drinking to feel good. Sometimes just a hug from someone can bring your nervous system down enough to keep going forward. Touch reduces physical tension in the body, and that can also be associated with your mental chatter. And taste can do the same thing. I've actually combined these because whether it's a hug or a cup of tea or, sometimes a cupcake, though that physical sensation from touch and taste can bring you right back to where you need to be. There can be very grounding. And I often find that one of the best things I can do when I am super stressed is number one, go lay down with my dog, pet the belly, get some kisses, and also make a cup of peppermint tea. Those two things very commonly can bring me back to where I need to be when I'm a bit stressed out. So I have those things in my house. Okay, the last sense we're going to talk about hacking is sound. Sound is also associated with certain experiences. This is why Christmas carols or holiday music can instill that instant feeling of joy, right? We want it so bad we start right after Halloween. Sounds can synchronize brain waves, which lead to a feeling of relaxation and calmness. The frequency, volume, and essence of these sounds, music, or even the voices narrating a ebook are all by preference. I love the sound of chirping birds. I love the sound of wind chimes. I myself have Tibetan and crystal sound healing bowls. These are the things that somehow bring my nervous system to a level of calm and peace. What are the things that work for you? That's something for you to be thinking about. You can mix and match elements across all your five senses. So this is the best part. When you're designing your environment, keep all of these things in mind. Have that peppermint tea in the drawer. Have the wind chimes outside your kitchen window. Burn the candle. That smell makes you feel so good. Mixing and matching all of these things just builds up your resilience through the day. So as you start to kind of, I would say, taper down into that ball of stress and anxiety, engage one of these things or two or three and feel yourself feeling more like yourself. Find yourself feeling more like yourself. Remember, you're in there somewhere, and hacking your senses will help you get back to it and out of your mind. Out of the unhealthy parts of your mind, not literally out of your mind. Okay, now let's talk about living with intention. So in the first part, we talked about our basic human needs. In the second part, we talked about our senses. Now we're going to talk about how to put these things together and live with intention. I'd like to introduce you again, if you're not familiar, with the Stockdale paradox. The Stockdale paradox is a concept named after Admiral James Stockdale, a former prisoner of war in Vietnam. The paradox describes the idea that in order to survive a difficult or challenging situation, an individual must simultaneously confront and accept the reality of the situation while also maintaining a belief in their eventual victory or success. One will not work without the other. So Admiral Stockdale observed that prisoners who were most likely to survive their captivity were those who were faced with the harsh realities of the situation, while also maintaining the belief in their ability to overcome it. The Stockdale paradox is often cited in the context of leadership and management, which is where I learned about it in a guest speaker at work. But I think it's an important reminder that we need to balance realism and optimism in order to navigate challenging situations. Have you ever heard someone say, "I'm a realist"? But what they're saying is, "I'm a pessimist." Or you've heard someone say, "I'm an optimist." And to some people, that may mean that you're on cloud nine and you don't have a grasp on reality. That's why these two things together in the Stockdale paradox are so important. Let's talk about now what it means to have a life of intention. So we already know now we can look at our situation and say, all right, this sucks, but I can overcome it. That's being mindful and deliberate, okay? And how we spend our time, energy, and resources will support this. Living a life of intention requires a conscious effort and commitment. Otherwise, we'll end up down a rabbit hole or in a rut somewhere, right? So we have to continue staying on the path. And when we step off it, that's okay. We'll just come right back on it. Setting the path means you know where you want to go. But what we also know is we can control very little or try to control very little, or we'll go crazy. So detaching from the outcome is really important. Remembering that you will end up where you're meant to be and that the journey is part of the lesson, I think is really important. Taking the steps to create the life you want is easy when you're taking one step at a time. When you're looking too far in the future, 30 steps in advance, it can be really overwhelming. And you can grasp so hard to the thing at that 30 steps down the line. But what you're missing out is that on your journey, you may make different choices or change your mind, or something else may come up that is a better fit for you. It's really important. Set the path, detach from the outcome. Now, I'd like to introduce you to a book, if you haven't read it already, called Atomic Habits. And this book was written by James Clear, and it basically talks about how small incremental changes can have a profound effect and impact on our lives. So the term atomic refers to the idea that the habits are the building blocks of larger achievements, just like atoms are the building blocks of matter. One of the examples in the book that stood out to me was if you have two airplanes in Los Angeles and you point the nose of one at a, kind of in a certain direction, and you point the nose of the other 1 inch, let's say, to the right. One's going to end up in New York and one's going to end up in DC, while the noses of the planes are only really 1 inch apart. But what it's showing is that each step along the way, when you follow a certain path, can take you in very different directions. And so he's really keen on arguing that the key to creating meaningful and lasting change is focusing on those small habits, the daily behaviors that will shape where we want to be. So instead of relying solely on willpower and motivation, we should shift our attention to the process of habit formation instead. And so he recommends 4 things: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. And he talks a little bit more about this in the book. Adjusting the underlying beliefs that shape your identity can help you change your habits. So starting with something small and easy to do, like 1 extra glass of water a day. That's it. Have an extra glass of water a day. Don't wake up and think, I need to drink 8 glasses of water today. That's overwhelming, right? Just have an extra few sips before your coffee. And then you grow from that and grow from that. And remember, the intention is to design your environment to support your new habits. So if you are trying to cut back on drinking wine, don't buy wine. Don't keep it in the house. Only have it when you go out to dinner, for example. And you can measure your progress and adjust accordingly. Some things are going to work and some things aren't, and that is totally fine. All you have to do is acknowledge and make the adjustment that you see fit. James Clear says, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And that's why in his book, he outlines a framework for developing effective habits based on 4 principles. So you may have the best of intentions to reach a certain goal, but unless you have the system in place, that's where you're actually going to end up reaching, right? So the system that he recommends in 4 steps is the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. The cue means that habits are triggered by specific cues or prompts in our environment. And by identifying and deliberately designing cues that prompt our desired behaviors, we can make it easier to initiate those behaviors automatically. So this example could be, having some fresh fruit around to have as a snack instead of buckets of cookies. So the cue, I'm hungry. The craving. The craving is the motivational force behind the habits. So by linking a habit to a positive or rewarding experience, we can increase our motivation to perform the habit consistently. The response. This is the actual behavior or action we take to the cue. So clear emphasizes the importance of making habits easy to perform by breaking them down into small, manageable steps. Finally, the reward. This is the positive reinforcement that follows the habit. And he suggests designing immediate and satisfying rewards that can reinforce and solidify the habit loop. So again, this is a loop, and you kind of repeat it all day long, depending on the changes you want to see. And in small fragments, right? Cue, craving, response, reward. Check out this book because I think it gives a really great framework for how you can start to make small changes. As always, we're going to reflect on and reply on this after the presentation and continue on in your journey with more resources throughout the program. Finally, we have a guest speaker in this module who talks about eating for wellness, and I think you'll really like the approach and the philosophy that she brings. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.